So the question today was about the immunity, and immunity really means ability to handle uh, diseases or pathogens, for example, infiltrating bacteria, viruses, or something that is going to be harmful to the body. And an immune mechanism typically works in a way that it identifies the bacteria or virus, or if there is any kind of injury, that tissue becomes harmful and dead, etc., whatever. Then the immune mechanism is basically the cleansing area, cleans up the whole environment. It fights the invader, for example. If there's an invader coming up, and this system is, there are two types, and we're not going to go details about this today, but there are two types of this. One is within the cells themselves. Every cell has an ability to fight. And the second one is with the circulation part. There are some elements in the circulation. There are some proteins or globulins that we call it immunoglobulins. And this is the circulating area which identifies these different area the invaders. Now, if there's an invading organism comes, there's also an area that it attaches. They call a receptor area. So once that attacks there, there's like a war going on, tug of war, right there. In a tug of war, there are some areas that the cells get damaged, or sometimes the blood and immune system gets activated. You say, well, hey, somebody's coming in. Better we stop that. And so a process occurs where the white cells, they start coming in. The white cells, there are specific white cells that are they're like police, you see. Red cells are carrying oxygen. The white cells are like police. Now, fascinating part is that what you see, the red cells helping the white cells here. An interesting situation. And how does that happen? So we established that connection with the breath work. The next part is very, very interesting too. And that is that all the white cells, they create a whole, like a war zone, like, for example, there's a fight going on in the street. Okay. And when the fight is going on in the street, all of a sudden, the police gets aware. They get information about it. Hey, something is happening in this particular area of the city or the town. And so when they get that message, there's a messenger system. And when they get that message, the message can be relayed in different ways. It could be pain, it could be itching, it could be fever, it could be number of messages in the body. But as soon as the messages reach, irritation, for example, cough, they don't like it, or sometimes we have diarrhea, for example, or things of that nature. Things happen, burning, pain, whatever kind of message is there. Anytime the message is reaching the main center, all of a sudden there's no main center, but there is the whole system. Immune system is all over the body, and then they start sending this police force. The white cells is the police force, and the police force that goes there and gets engaged in the war. And many times the police people, they kill, and after the bodies are dead, you have to remove them. You can't keep them on the field. If you keep them on the field, they stink. Dead bodies, and this happens all the time in wars, you see. Because that you have to remove these things, because then it creates a cleaner area. So there's other function that the white cells do. So all these are important. Why am I saying all this? Because every area of the immune system gets helped through practices. Now, there are a number of areas where the outside agent can invade the body. And we know that very well. For example, the skin. The skin is tougher, outside layers are tough, so that things don't penetrate there, unless it's an open wound. If there's an open wound, something cracks open, skin cracks up, dry, cracked up, that will lose the immunity. Or maybe sometimes it's too much of washed washed skin. For example, too much of moisture in the skin. That is also like you see wrinkles form because it's soaked for a long time. If your feet are in the soaking for a long time, you see how that becomes a little whitish in color and loses the top layer. When that happens, you it's called a washed leather appearance. That loses the whole barrier to all these bacteria coming in. So this one area, skin is one. Second is the intestinal area. You know that very well about how you eat different kinds of food and you have a problem because it is invading your body. You're allergic to it. You eat some bacteria, something that is poison, food poison. You're all aware of that. So either you throw up or you evacuate, diarrhea, whatever. So this is another area that happens. And then supposing the food does get into the system, now the internal cell or the circulation system takes over because these things have come into the body. So this is the area in the digestive system. Urinary system is easy to recognize. The urinary infection can happen along the lines. It's open. It's a little bit more common in women than in men, but men also can have that. That this is the area where Mukesh Pai is the specialist, and he can talk more about it. But that's another area. Now, the last but the important area is the lung. And as we said, the lung surface area is big. Skin is 1 square meter. Intestine is about 40 to 50 square meters, and the lung is 100 square meters, 90 to 100. So it's a huge surface area. So just a little bit, couple of points before we do the practice part of it and go through the practices that are helpful. We'll practice a couple of them. And this happens to be the major war zone. In fact, there are two areas where the immune cells are maximum in concentration in the body. One is the intestinal tract. As we know, there's a lot of exposure. So in the intestinal tract, there are bacteria and also there are cells. The line of the intestine that produces some fighting immune responses. They call it immune response, fighting against invasion. And same thing is with the lung. Lung, I will go to the lung in a minute, is to say there are two elements that exist. One is called histamine, and second is heparin. Heparin, you probably heard, it's a blood thinner. There's a blood thinner. There are lots of cells in these two cells are maximum in the lung area, very huge amount. The reason why you need a little bit of blood thinning is because ultimately, when invasion occurs, you need a lot of blood. It's like when you mobilize the army, the roadways for the army have to be open. If you block the roadways, the army cannot get, and that's one of their war tactics. You know that, right? So therefore, the other way around, to provide a lot of army, is to open up all the roadways and make it easier for it to flow. So what happens? Two things happen. One is the heparin that opens up loosens up the blood, makes it thin, and allows it to flow very freely through the lung when that happens. And the histamine. Histamine is just nothing, but it just tells everybody, gives a signal, hey, we are having trouble here. Hey, we're having trouble here. You have to have a flag to say this is a trouble area. That's histamine, like a flag. It creates what we call as inflammation. And so it works like that. Now, how do this? And the other part is your lung has to be working well. Now, if the area that you get involved, so let's say the invasion comes bacteria or viruses, something. If there's a blockage in the nose, there's a block area. It's the same thing that we're talking about, like the army cannot get to it. And last but not the least, the roadways have to be able to accommodate everything. So the roadways have to be wide and open. Understand all this, and so how do we do that? That's how we increase our immunity. That's how we facilitate the way to fight the way to fight. And so here it goes. The mind alignment is easy to get to. When you create an intention, so inhale and exhale, let's do that. We create an intention that will be increasing our immunity. We'll be able to fight whatever comes our way. And I am strong. I am powerful. I am healthy. I can handle any invasion that comes through. This creates the whole environment and mobilizes certain neurotransmitters, they call it chemicals up here. That when you speak like that, when you create the intention, these neurotransmitters get ready. They get ready to say, okay, get ready for the war. It's like the CEO or the commander getting everybody ready. So command with your intention. And now we'll start with a little deep breath. So as you deep breath, ordinarily we don't do too much of deep breath. When you open the full breath, you open up all the areas. So full breath is definitely one way to stretch every area and open up. Remember we said we have to stretch all the areas so that whatever is invading will have a chance to be handled. Start with a full breath. Then next one we have talked about is breath holding in different ways. You do breath holding while walking, breath holding by another technique you said was 4-4-4 or the box breathing. When we do the breath holding, what we do is we increase the carbon dioxide. That stimulates the brain and becomes a little acid. And that little acid improves the oxygen uptake to every cell in the body, including the immune cells, including the spleen, including the liver, including the heart, into the brain. So breath holding a little bit, just 30 seconds of breath holding, or 15 seconds, or 20 seconds of breath holding, which is easy to do. But you add 20 to 20, and it adds up. It does not have to be 30 seconds at the same time. But if you add 10 seconds and 15 seconds, and if you do the same sitting, it will have an additive effect. And you do the breath holding, it has a lot of advantages. It is also increasing the immune system. Two things happen. The spleen contracts. As soon as you do the breath holding for a while, a lot of red cells come into the system. And along with the red cells, also white cells. Because ultimately, spleen, that's the story. The white cells also come in. We talked about the histamine and heparin. They get released because of the stretching and everything else. And also a little irritation is happening. So when you breathe in, all the system, all the entire army is ready to fight. And therefore, anytime you have cough, cold, anytime you have allergies, deep breathing and breath holding may be difficult, but starting the process in whatever area you want to do is great. And one more thing I would say, if the person is breathing fast, you're blowing out the carbon dioxide. And when you're blowing out the carbon dioxide, what happens is the blood becomes alkaline, not acidic. And that has two problems. One problem is because it becomes alkaline, the breathing gets suppressed. Carbon dioxide has gone out. So efficient breathing is not there anymore. That's one. So you have to be very aware. This is where the intention comes in. Intention into action. You have to be aware, I'm doing this. However, I did this a little differently. Let me correct it. Let me change it. So people who have asthma, people who have, wheezing going on, they are the exact people who need this. They are having trouble. So you can always say, oh, but I'm having trouble. I don't know what I'm going to do. So they're the exact people who need these kinds of mind management and mind alignment and making sure that you're doing it properly. Now, last but not the least, I will say is humming. And in humming, what you did was you created nitric oxide. So nitric oxide was also, so we said oxygenation, good oxygenation, some increased carbon dioxide. Now, oxygenation doesn't mean that it goes from 99 to 100. No, that's not what we're talking about. But 99 to 100 is in the blood area that you're measuring with your oximeter. This oxygenation is called oxygen uptake by the cells. That increases oxygen uptake. The cells take it up more. From whatever is available, they take more. That's the oxygenation part that we are concerned about, because that's what helps fight the invasion. So that's one. Carbon dioxide also increase. That helps to some degree, obviously, initially. And then the third one is the nitric oxide. So it's all three gases. We're talking about all three gases. To increase the nitric oxide also by breath holding is true, but by humming. Now, humming also, what do you do with humming? If you want to do long humming for 1 hour while you're walking, you're obviously putting your maximum effort. So let's hum. Let's hum this way. Inhale and hum very long. 20 seconds or more at a time. Then you start adding more, longer and longer humming, 30 seconds at a time. Whatever is that, time that one. Because when you do that, you're stretching, you're inhaling a lot. And then you're slowly exhaling. Keep on adding, keep on adding. That way you will do more and more, and you're walking. That is obviously putting your respiration at a little bit more stretch, and you're doing more. Now, the last step, but not the least, is the pursed lip breathing. We did that last time, but pursed lip is the same way. You are inhale and exhale. That also stretches the lung open. It stretches the sinuses and creates more nitric oxide. So increasing immunity. Now, and another thing area that happens is the activity of the cells that are eating up all these dead bacteria or live bacteria that are fighting, called macrophages. They're called macrophages. These are the white cells that eat up stuff. That activity is more increased. That has been documented. So there are so many other science behind it. We're not going to go into that, but just so that you know that what you're practicing right now is not homeostasis. It's not allostasis. It's hormesis. Practicing hormesis. So in order to increase the immunity against anything you want, your breath pattern, the way you breathe, intention you create, stabilize yourself and do it properly. It will increase immunity for sure.